I'm like drawing a blank. Bang around the exhaust. Did we stop? Where did we leave off last time? Hey everyone, Alex here at Aero Performance. Today we have TO's M3 in for a complete Valvetronic sport exhaust system. This one comes with the catalytic converters, resonators, and the full valve muffler system. It is a complete kit that comes with everything that you need to be able to install this at either at home or at a shop. So let's get into the tools that you'll need and let's get started. So the tools you're gonna need today are pretty basic hand tools, nothing crazy. Typically for most systems, you'll need a 13 millimeter and a 10 millimeter, a 16 millimeter for the reinforcement cover in the front, an E12 socket, a couple E-Torx, 1/4 inch and 3/8 ratchets, a couple extensions, some open-ended wrenches for some of the more difficult stuff, and then an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench for the back muffler box, and a 22 millimeter for the O2 sensors. We're using an impact gun for today's job, but you can do all this with hand tools. So everything that you'll find in your garage, you'll most likely have already. So the first step is gonna be removing this transmission felt cover. It's gonna be held on by two 8 millimeter screws here, and then there's gonna be two 10s right here, and then two 10s right here. Next step is to remove this reinforcement plate. It's held on by 16 millimeter fasteners all the way around. There is one here in the middle. Just gotta zap them off and this will all come down. Now that we got this reinforcement panel out of the way, you can clearly tell that we have enough room to get these two bolts for the exhaust manifold to the rest of the system off. We also have access to the oxygen sensors, so we have pretty much complete space to work with. So we're gonna go ahead and get those loosened up and continue forward. To get these off, I usually use a small extension, E12 socket, get it on. Just be careful, don't try to round these. There is a 14 millimeter on the back in most cases. Just gotta break them loose. We're gonna take off this little heat shield to gain access to the passenger side front O2 sensor connector. Now you have access to remove this connector. Just slides right out, typical. Sometimes connectors a little tight. There we go. And then be careful, as you can tell on a previous install, looks like someone just twisted the sensor in place. I usually try to like get it to where it doesn't twist. So same thing on the driver's side, connector is right here. There's no heat shield on this one. Just gotta push it, slide it back, connector here, and then disconnect, and that's free. On the rear, O2 sensors on both sides, they're held up by little clips. It has a little holder for the connector itself. You just pry it down like so. It's a circular connector. This one you just gotta hold in place and just pull down. It comes apart like that. Same thing on this side. Again, wire's got a little connector holder, and then the harness holder is right there. Pull it down, find your little thing, and then just pull and separate. Now we're gonna loosen these two T50s. Sometimes they're 13 millimeter bolts, sometimes they're T50s, depending on the car. I'm just gonna go ahead and get them loose. Next, we're gonna go towards the back. We're gonna disconnect the mounts that go to the differential right here, and then there's also gonna be a few mounts in the back before we disconnect the whole exhaust from the chassis. So these are 18 millimeter nuts. Loosen those up, remove the nut, and then typically the mount will just fall down like that. Again, these are usually not extremely tight. You don't have to over tighten them as well when you go to install them, and they should just drop like that. So we're gonna move on to the back right here. There's gonna be a mount for the muffler here on both sides, and there's also one right here in the middle of the diffuser. Usually they're held in by 13 millimeter nuts. And then on the back one, there's two 8 millimeters here. Once you remove that, then the exhaust in the backside will be loose. Also, do take note, there usually is a ground strap that goes here, but it's missing on this car. So if there is a little strap, make sure you disconnect that as well. As you're taking these bolts off for the mount, just make sure to take note and move your diffuser out of the way. Don't make sure you don't want to damage it. And you'll have the rear exhaust section free. If you have any aftermarket diffusers here, this may be more difficult to remove possibly. And do note the orientation of the bracket. They are supposed to only go in one way, but you can technically reverse this. So just make sure you make note how it is right now. So at this point, we've gotten all the hardware for the muffler section loosened. We have all the hardware for the middle section mounts loosened. We have our 4 bolts in the front loosened, O2 sensors disconnected, middle bracket disconnected. So the only thing left that's holding the entire exhaust up to the car are these 4 13mm bolts holding this middle section bracket. Once you do loosen this, make sure that you put a jack stand or something to support the exhaust because the stock system is pretty heavy. A second person does help in this case. So we'll show you how to take that off right now. So we're kind of cheating here using this transmission jack, but same thing applies if you're doing this on jack stands. Just make sure you have a nice jack right here in the middle. It'll hold everything up, and a second person, like I said, helps during this process to remove it. It is heavy, so just be really careful and don't hurt yourself. Drop it. So this is the stock system in all its glory. It's completely untouched, which is probably what you'll be expecting if you're doing the same thing as us. Someone did the muffler mod in the back already, but that's a discussion for another day. But pretty much just take note of all the way the mounts are. This one is in this direction. These are like this, because you're gonna have to transfer them over. You're gonna have to transfer over the middle bracket with the 2 little rubber mounts. Depending on how old they are, they could be ripped, so definitely recommend replacing them if we need to. And oxygen sensors as well. We're just gonna be doing the pre-cat, which are gonna be these ones. We're gonna be transferring these over to the new ones, but we're replacing these, so that's pretty much it. We're also replacing these donut gaskets. TOs are actually in pretty decent condition, but we've seen these ripped apart and cause all kinds of issues. So we're gonna replace them, put some new ones on like that. They should slide off. Sometimes you may have to use like this one stuck, a flathead screwdriver. So pry that one off and replace them. We're gonna remove the O2 sensors, start transferring them over. Again, we're reusing our post-cat O2 sensors. We have new pre-cat, but it's very simple. It's 22mm wrench, put it on there. Sometimes they come off easy like that. Other times you might need to heat them up, put PV blaster, whatever. Hopefully they don't fight you, but they can be, so just be careful. Before putting the O2 sensors, if you're using them, I like to put a little dab of anti-seize on the threads, so that way if you have to remove them later down the line, they're nice and easy to pop out. Put a little bit of anti-seize on the header bolts, just again, good practice, and allows for easier removal down the line if you ever need to. All right. So we got the front section on. Do be careful on this one. The flange actually can slide off the exhaust manifold, so try not to pull it too much, otherwise it might come off and can damage this, so just be mindful of that. We're gonna start putting on the X-pipe next, and then the exhaust, and then we'll start adjusting everything. So we got the X-pipe in. It's a little tricky, but the best tip I can tell to you is just keep everything nice and loose. Again, Just be careful with this side because this can slip off completely off the exhaust manifold. Two people honestly really helps for the installation, but it is doable by yourself if you have to. So we got the X pipe in, slipped on, it's still loose, so we're gonna start getting ready to do the midsection and the rear muffler, and once we do that, then we can start adjusting everything and buttoning up the entire system. I'm gonna pop these out. These can be a little difficult, so sometimes you need a little bit of persuasion, some lube.
It's that easy.
No. No.
So now we're gonna start transferring over some of the brackets. So 13 mil on this. Let's remove it. Same on this side. 13 mil. There, and then I'm gonna remove this. Just gonna take these off. Again, some lubricant can help. Take your time, just like that. So we swapped over the rear exhaust hanger bracket. We're just gonna put it on one for right now, so it's a little easier to install later. Same with the Valvetronic. I think is the muffler bracket as well. Kind of hold both sections together a little more securely. We elected to use our own hardware. We used some flange nuts compared to the hardware that they provide. So this is the direction that this is going to go on. Once we put one side in, we can bolt it kind of up to the car, and then we could slide the other hanger on as we put the other muffler into the car, and then we could bolt everything together.
We got the center support section from the old exhaust. We're just gonna transfer it over to the new X pipe. It's pretty straightforward. Just get the mounts, slide into the bracket, and then you can put the 210 or 13 millimeter nuts on top. Once you get the center support in, you can put these in loosely just to kind of hold the exhaust up. Just make sure you don't cross thread the threads. Yeah, that's it. So we got the section 3 in. It's a little difficult to kind of get in, but it is doable with especially an extra person, as I keep stressing. We have everything loose right now. I think what we're gonna start doing is tightening up some of the mounts that go onto the chassis, and then we're gonna start finalizing up front, making sure that's all cleared and then nothing is touching or rubbing or anything like that, and work our way back to make sure everything is in the right spot that we wanted to. But for right now, we have everything just loose, ready to go for final adjustment. So we're gonna start tightening up front and go from there. So right now I'm finalizing the section 1. As you can tell, just wanna make sure that none of the piping is touching any of the heat shields or resting up against anything. I'm gonna finalize all that. You can rotate it a little bit if you need be. So just gonna finalize this and start tightening up everything. Now we have the exhaust in, everything is finalized. We've got the back box section right where we want it. To point out, these are the hangers that they provide in the kit that you should be using. They go right here. They have some adjustability, so depending on maybe different diffuser setups, you can put those and anchor them in certain ways. You just gotta tighten up all the clamps. Probably the more difficult part of the install is actually getting the tips to actually line up correctly. And for you to be able to do that, you're gonna be mostly adjusting from back here where the ball clamps are. You're gonna be adjusting here where you can kind of rotate it, and then the bracketry right here. And also where the chassis mount for the exhaust goes. There is some up and down motion there. So aside from that, pretty straightforward. Just gotta make sure you tighten all your hardware, 13 millimeters, 8 mils right here, all your clamps. The 18 millimeters at the differential for that, these guys right here, and then your bracketry with the associated 13 mil hardware to make sure that's all good. Up front, same thing applies. you have your brackets here, you got your O2 sensors, your flanges to the exhaust manifold. Everything does adjust, so if you're having issues with fitment in one area, kind of work your way back, adjust here, and then kind of go back as you go. The more dialed in the fitment you have in the front, the better chances you're gonna have in the rear. If you start from the rear and you work your way forward, more than likely you're gonna start adjusting parts of the rear section exhaust, and you're gonna notice that it's not gonna be lining up. So my recommendation from what we've always had good success is start from the front, keep everything loose, and then start tightening as you go back, and then adjust here and there depending on, you know, if you have any fitment issues. But aside from that, we just gotta put the reinforcement plate back on, the DCT transmission cover, and wire up the little solenoid box for the valves, and then we're pretty much done. Make sure you don't hear any rattles. Double check all your heat shields are sufficiently away from the exhaust, and just double check your work. Like, it doesn't take any additional time, and it saves you from having to jack up the car or put the car back on the lift. So in this case, I think we're good. So for the actual control unit that controls the two valves for the mufflers, we're gonna put the control unit right here. We're gonna run the wire right here in the middle panel. Just gonna drill a hole straight directly down that wires off to both. And also we're gonna get power and ground from inside the trunk as well, which we'll show. It's pretty easy. This way, if you put it here, this will still allow this little trunk mat to sit pretty flush, and there'll be a minimal run of this vacuum line. It'll be easy to just put it through, and you don't have to fish through like the grommets or anything like that. Just one quick hole right here in the middle. I think we're using, let me see, a 25/64 drill bit. Just went straight right here in the middle and cleaned it up, and it's ready to route. So let's do that real fast. So you can see, vacuum line comes straight down. We have it plugged up to the control unit, and that's about the most it's gonna be. So give it a little bit of slack. And then after we're done, we're gonna put a little bead of sealant here to kind of keep any possible water from coming in, but usually doesn't happen. From here, we'll just cut it, branch it off with this Y piece, and that pretty much finishes off the vacuum portion of the install. This is how we routed our vacuum lines. Obviously, there's many ways to do this, but we felt this was probably the easiest way, both from a kind of serviceability standpoint. It's just one small line that goes to the top, and then two small ones that go here. We zip tied the Y. So we're gonna put a little bit of silicone here just to kind of seal it up, and then we'll go back up top and wire up the control module box. TO's elected to not use the cigarette lighter portion of the wiring, mainly because he actually uses it for other things. So for some of you guys that are watching this, you could route this all the way to your cigarette lighter in the front. That's probably the easiest way to do it for most people. But if in the case that you have to use that for something else, then what you can do is actually just cut the wire. It's just two wires inside, and strip back some of the protective shielding, and you'll see that there is a red wire for 12 volt and then a black wire for ground. In the case of this, you don't want to just hook it up to the battery, because if you do, this will stay on all the time, and that could drain your battery and potentially leave you stranded. So what we're going to be wiring this to is actually to the tail light, specifically the brown wire here, and I believe the black and yellow wire, which is switch 12 volts for the DRLs. In order for you to do that, you do have to confirm that it is a switch source. Every M3, E90, or whatever platform you're wiring this on can be different. So this is just only a guide for reference. You may find 12 volt switch in another place of the car that may work better for you. So, but for us, that's where we're going to be tapping into to make sure that we have switched 12 volts to the control unit, and that way it doesn't drain the battery. And for us to connect those two wires to our other two wires here, we're going to be using quick splice connectors. Again, there's many different ways you can do this. This is the easiest way that we find that works best for us. You may cut and solder, you might crimp it, whatever works best for you. This is what we're going to use. But yeah, we're going to be tapping into the ground wire here. We confirmed that with our multimeter, and we're going to be tapping into this wire right here, which we've confirmed that is switched 12 volts to our multimeter. Once we do that, we should be able to test this to make sure it's working, and then that pretty much finishes the install. Where's the remote? So we just tested the control module. Everything's working now. Just wanted to confirm before we finalize any of the wiring. Now that we know that it works, we can go ahead and tuck this up, put some zip ties, make sure it looks pretty. All that's left to do is put this back together, make sure the wiring is good, tuck it up, make sure it looks good and it doesn't catch on anything. Put our panels back on, and now we can hear what the exhaust sounds like for the first time. So that wraps up the installation on this E9X As you can see, it was pretty straightforward install. It wasn't very difficult, something you could definitely tackle in your driveway or on a lift if you have that availability to you. The only places that you may have some trouble, as you may have seen, or if you're referencing this video, is potentially splicing in the control unit for the valves. But again, there's many different ways of doing it. You can either reference ours or you can reference online. There's many forum posts on it. Aside from that, as you can tell also that the open and closed positions of the valves make a huge difference in terms of volume and the tonality of the car. If you live in a noise restriction state, such as California, for example, where police is, sometimes looking for that kind of stuff, it's a really nice option to be able to close the valves and have a very quiet car if you're going through a town or anything like that, or your neighbors. And then when you're out in the, canyons or something, you want to open it up, you turn on the valves and open them up, and it sounds amazing. So aside from that, it's a really good bang for buck system, worth every penny. The fitment was bang on. There wasn't very many issues with fitment or anything like that. And I definitely give this a highly recommended system for any E92, E90, M3 or M5, or pretty much any platform, if I'm being honest, and we're not being paid to say that. So again, as we always say, we appreciate you watching, liking, and subscribing to the channel. If you have any other questions, just let us know either through the Era Performance Instagram page or directly through email or phone. We'll have our information on the description below. And stay tuned for some future DIYs. We're definitely going to be bringing in a lot of stuff, such as this Ferrari 599. We're going to be doing a suspension refresh, so definitely stay tuned for that. And we've got a lot of stuff coming into the shop for 2026, so make sure you like, subscribe, and stay tuned. As always, we appreciate the love. Thank you so much. Bye.